What is your overall big picture view now of how the rest of the season goes? We are 4 games into it. I am still very optimistic that this is a team that will win more games than it loses, okay, and enough games, meaning probably at least 10, to qualify for the playoffs and then be held to deal with when the playoffs begin. I think it'll be an offensive-led team when Jaden comes back, and Jaden's, operating on all cylinders health-wise. And certainly they need Terry McLaurin back. Okay, yes, I don't believe that Terry McLaurin is what Terry McLaurin believes he is on the hierarchy of wide receivers, but he's the best they have, and they need him back if they're going to be what they were last year, which is offensive-led, quarterback-led, and a chance to win 10, 11 games, be in the postseason, and win a couple of games for sure. I am still optimistic about this team being that. There are 2 reasons why in 3 or 4 weeks you might get me to step off the limb that maybe I'm now on. I don't think I was on much of a limb a few weeks ago. Those 2 things are this. Number 1, the defense has not, as many of you said before last week, has not revealed itself to be any better overall than last year's defense was. And that was part of the equation going in. I was, I wasn't convinced it would be better. I thought it was a huge mystery. I was hoping it would be better. And that hope that it could only improve from what it was last year hasn't been realized yet. That hope hasn't delivered yet. I think they're better talent-wise up front with Kinlaw. I do, but the jury's still out. And as I mentioned in the opening segment, part of the problem actually is that some of the players that we had high expectations for that would step up and be even better than they were last year in year 2 of Joe Witt Jr.'s system, also in one particular player's case, year 2 period of his career, they haven't done that yet. They still might. Mikey Sanders still has not played well. I mean, he played better on Sunday, I guess, with the interception. Quan Martin hasn't played at the level that he was playing at last year. Frankie Louvu has taken a slight step back. I love Louvu. That's been part of this. And certainly scheme, play calling, all of that. Lattimore, let's move Mikey outside, Noah I inside, and bench Lattimore. I'm for whatever they come up with. I just don't want to see the same thing over and over again that we've seen against Green Bay and Atlanta from a coverage standpoint. I'm going to talk about that in more detail on the show today based on something that Quinn said yesterday. So number 1, I would step off that limb if in 4 more weeks it was very clear and it had absolutely revealed itself, the defense, to be just as bad as it was last year. Because point number 2 that would get me to take a step back is, man, the NFC is potentially loaded. Philly, of course, but I think the Lions are going to be really good this year. Their problem last year is they had all those injuries on defense. If they're healthy on defense, they are still an outstanding offensive football team. And I think the Rams have revealed themselves to be contenders here early in the season. Now, it's a bit fragile there because of a quarterback who's older. He's got to stay healthy, but he is the real deal at 37 years old. Is that what Stafford is? 37 years old? Because that team has weapons. Puka Nakua's on pace to catch 375 passes this year for 4,000 yards. That isn't it, actually, but he's got 42 catches through 4 games. I think we figured this out yesterday. What's he on pace for? 175, 180 catches?
Yeah, I think it was 173
like
was the final number that we decided
which
on.
would shatter the Mike Thomas record from a few years ago.
Correct.
Michael Thomas had 149 in a season, one season for the Saints. And then he's on pace, I think, for 2,100 yards, which would break the record as well. Wow, has he turned into a baller. I believe Jaden Daniels is going to have a big season. Not the start he wanted with 2 games on the shelf, but fingers crossed he stays healthy and starts, doing what he did last year, which is lighting teams up week in and week out. So here we go. I'm still optimistic that this is going to be an offensive-led playoff team that will win double-digit games, which is what's going to be required to make the postseason. Max, where are you?
So I'm not bailing, of course. Like, it's too early to bail. You're a quarter of the way through the season. The team is at 500 at 2-2, along with 9 other teams that I think will. I mean, depending on how the arrows are going up or down. But no, it's not a matter of how you play right now. You can see that in a lot of teams. Like, look at the Chiefs; they're 2-2 as well. It's how you play in the playoffs towards the end of the year. It's about getting hot at the right time. That's a biggest thing in football. We did it last year, got all the way to the NFC Championship game. So it's about getting healthy now and getting through this horrible stretch that you're currently going under with, John Bates, Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, pretty much everybody that helps you win these games and gives you an advantage over the other team. So I'm not going to bail. I think that we're still going to make the playoffs and still going to be a dangerous team and be a tough out. It's just the defense and the secondary. The secondary really, 3.5 weeks ago, I said top 3 they could be, and they might be bottom 3. So I was big time wrong on that one. I'm a little bit worried about Marshawn Lattimore and Joe Witt, just like we were talking about yesterday, the trying to determine whether it's a scheme issue or if it's players on the field. And I'm not really sure which is which, but once we get a little bit more data and just watching more of these games, that will reveal itself, and we'll kind of find out what needs to be done later this year.
I'm interested to see if a change or two is coming.
Yeah.
Look, Will Harris being out probably was a blow to them.
Big blow.
Even though they liked Jeremy Reeves, they really liked the way Will Harris was playing, except I think in the Green Bay game. I mean, I think part of the issue really is the Giant and the Raider games from a defensive standpoint. They just were a bit misleading, like a lot misleading. All right, let's start with Anthony in DC. Anthony, big picture through 4 games. Where's this season headed?
Before the season started, I was always cautioning beware because of the step up in competition. And I disagree with you. I think the pattern has been set. The stiffer the competition, the weaker the defense.
Right.
In order for us to get where we want to go, the offense is going to have to outscore the other opponent,
like they did last year,
competent opponents, like they did last year. I believe that this is counterintuitive to say this, but I believe that catching lightning in a bottle has been long-term counterproductive. When you stack what Peters has done on top of what Rivera failed to do with draft picks, I think we can legitimately say that we are 3 years behind in roster building. And on top of that, the potential issue that you may run into is, can you maintain the offense while trying to build up the defense? Because as you try to build up the defense, the offense is going to age out in some particular areas.
Look, it's not counterintuitive to say what you said. There's logic in it. That they went for it last year, and they went for it a bit, in the offseason as well. Now, remember, the 2 additions they made were on offense in the offseason in terms of trades, Debo and Tunsil. But I hear what you're saying. I would caution, though, last year's draft, certainly this year's draft, it's way too early, just way too early to have a definitive opinion on what these drafts will look like. We can now go back to 2022 and safely say that was not a good draft, and the trade back with the Saints was not a good trade, but because we've got 3 full seasons, the 22 season, the 23 season, and the 24 season. But for their draft classes, we have 1 full season for last year's draft class, I just don't see any way of calling the 2024 draft a real disappointment. at this point. Too early, way too early. But thanks for the call as always, Anthony. Let's go to Cam. Cam, what's your big picture outlook for the rest of the year through 4 games now?
What's up, Kevin? Good morning. Mine hasn't changed. I was never as optimistic as other folks saying we had, Patrick Surtain and Revis Island in the secondary. I was always 3-3 in division, fighting for a 6 or 7 seed, and I haven't changed, right? I think we have when everyone's healthy, a top-notch offense. I do worry about the defense, and I think I had this problem last year and over, the last half a decade or so. Like, even watching the game last night where Denver, I think, was getting home with 4, they're playing the Bengals, but they're getting home with a 4-man rush. Like, we can't get home with a 4-man rush, but also at the current, our current position, don't have the ability to send 6 or 7 because we can't cover one-on-one. So that is concerning, but I do think, we have an offense that can score 30, 35. It's just hate that we have to do it. But my position hasn't stand. Like, that's what it is. But I am worried about the defense for sure.
Yeah, I think everybody that watched last year had to be skeptical that the defense could make a big enough jump to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Like last year, they were a Super Bowl contender based on where they got to in the postseason. But it was very obvious when they got up against Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game on the road that they were not good enough defensively to win another 2 games. But that doesn't mean that their offense can't, do it again. The lightning in the bottle last year is only lightning in the bottle if Jaden ends up being kind of a 1-year wonder. Because I think if he's more than a 1-year wonder, and I do believe that he is, then I think the team every year with him, as long as he's healthy, and he's already missed 2 games this year. So the most he can play is 15 this year. You get down to 12 or 13 games, and that's all he plays. Well, now you've disrupted the entire possibility for the season. And I know they went 1-1 in the games that he didn't play, which is great. And by the way, played well offensively. Kudos to Marcus Mariota, Cliff Kingsbury, et cetera. It's not the same thing, though. But if you believe that it was lightning in the bottle last year, and maybe you're just referring specifically to making it to the NFC Championship game, that you believe, too, that Jaden isn't a 1-year wonder, he's legit and he's upper tier, and they're going to be a playoff contender every year. But winning 2 road playoff games, they had, 2 playoff games against 2 teams that were favored against them, but were also really banged up on the defensive side of the ball. So they caught a bit of some breaks there.